Palantir, which IPO'd just last year to much fanfare, one of the most hyped stocks in the market right now, just bought $50 million worth of gold bars. Now obviously, this is throwing up questions and red flags all over. People are wondering why Palantir of all companies has placed a not insignificant amount of its cash reserves into physical gold, and what the guys over at Palantir think is about to happen. Well, luckily for you, that's what we're here to talk about today. We're going to discuss what actually happened with Palantir, why they might have gone down this path, and what it could mean for us normal people. I even have a clip here from CNBC which sums it all up nicely. But really quickly, if you're new to the channel, then make sure to subscribe. We're putting out loads of videos just like this constantly that you don't want to miss out on.
Call it a $50 million mystery. Data analytics company Palantir buying more than $50 million worth of, get this, gold bars in August. According to a regulatory filing, the company is able to take physical possession of the gold at any time with reasonable notice. We reached out to Palantir to find out why they wanted gold on their books. They didn't respond to our request for a comment. Karen, you sort of did some fine print, looking at the fine print on this one. What'd you find?
Well, a little bit. So it was in the 10Q, which is what they released the other day. It talked about this August purchase. So this wouldn't be on the balance sheet that they had in the 10Q. So we don't know how they're going to treat it. Remember, we talked about Bitcoin and how it would be treated on Tesla's balance sheet, and that it would be at the fluctuation down. They would have to mark it down, but not up. I don't know if that would be the same here. I don't recall ever seeing this, except for maybe a gold-related company, and that would be a raw material or a work in process or inventory or something. It's interesting. It's sort of surprising. It's kind of, we were expecting like a Bitcoin or something like that, or
it's
an altcoin.
Retro or something.
That's
I don't know what you would call it.
It feels kind of like CIA-ish. Like I mean, if you think about also that, at least the relationship that this company has had with the government, and where gold has always been, this strategic reserve dynamic. And look, gold prices. This isn't a conversation about gold, but it's probably an interesting time to be making a longer-term commitment to gold, in my view. I realize, Bitcoin enthusiasts say, why bother? I think gold is proven to be very much a hedge against central banks here.
Guy, give me your best conspiracy theory.
Notice they didn't buy the gold ETF. They bought actual physical gold bars. It's fascinating. Yeah. There's no listen, I mean, I could talk about this for an hour, and we only have a minute left. But I would say this is one of those days you bookmark. This is them saying, you know what, central banks are out of control, Black Swan event, good for them. And my sense is you're going to see more of that, and maybe them dip their toe into crypto as well.
Now, some of you will obviously know who Palantir are and what they do, but I know a lot of you won't. So for those of you who don't know, Palantir is a company that was designed from the ground up to sell information, software, and in particular, artificial intelligence to Western governments, or basically the United States and its close allies. These products and services are tailored for intelligence agencies, armies, police forces, and the like to help them fight terrorism, win wars, and prevent crime. It was founded by Peter Thiel, one of the co-founders of PayPal back in 2003. But it went public last year and pretty much instantly became a fan favorite for those who invest in high growth companies. Most of their customer base basically comes from the US government, the CIA, the FBI, NSA and ICE, but they have started to push into the private sector and are starting to work more and more with banks, startups and other tech companies. So why is everyone talking about Palantir right now? Well, at the end of each financial quarter, companies like Palantir have to release a whole bunch of financial information, and in the information that Palantir just released, it was revealed that Palantir had bought $50 million worth of physical gold bars. Now, usually when someone chooses to invest in gold, they buy an ETF or they buy exposure to gold. They don't actually buy the physical gold itself because it's more expensive and a little bit more difficult. When you buy gold through an ETF or you go online and buy gold from a broker, you're probably going to be buying unallocated gold, which basically means that you're not actually buying the gold, you're just buying exposure. Now, what Palantir have done is they've purchased $50 million of actual physical gold bars, or what we call allocated gold. They physically own the gold bars and they pay someone to store it for them, but they can move it around or do whatever they like with it whenever they like. Now, the other thing that Palantir have done is they've paid off all their debt. Now, if that doesn't sound weird, it should. Palantir are a high-growth, fast-paced tech company that has never, in its 18 years of existence, made a profit. It lives off cash, either from debt or from capital raises, and it is really not very common for a company like Palantir to be getting rid of its debt in this point in its life cycle. Now here's the problem. Why is a company like Palantir, whose cash reserves is its lifeblood, tying up money as gold and getting rid of its debt? Well, historically, gold is the most consistent and reliable store of value in history. And for the last 100 years or so, its primary use has been as an inflation hedge. Basically, people buy gold to protect their wealth. If they think the government is printing too much money or devaluing their currency, gold is finite. We can't just print more of it, and it's extremely useful as well, so there's always demand. That means that when Weimar Germany lost all sense of rationality and started printing money, gold remained constant. It meant that when Zimbabwe or Venezuela did the same thing, gold remained constant. Gold is the world's most reliable inflation hedge, and Palantir have just thrown themselves headfirst into gold. Now at first, that sounds like it makes a lot of sense. Inflation in the US right now is sky high. We're seeing the highest levels of inflation for decades, and while the US government seems to think it's all okay and will disappear soon enough, economists are starting to feel more and more like inflation is here to stay. It makes sense that Palantir wouldn't want to be holding too much cash right now. But actually, it's making a little bit too much sense. We also have to remember that Palantir paid off all their debt. Now that sounded weird earlier, and it should sound even weirder now. Because if Palantir are expecting inflation to rise, then keeping their debt would be a good thing. You see, when inflation of a currency occurs, those who have money lose out. Those who have assets remain constant, but those who have debt profit. Debt is basically eroded away by inflation, as the currency becomes worth less of what it used to be, so when the loan is repaid, the real sum is smaller than expected. If Palantir are expecting inflation to continue or even to rise, then paying off their debt would be counterproductive. But if the economists on the other side of the spectrum, the Cathie Woods of the world, are right and deflation is the real threat to our economy, then paying off debt would make perfect sense. When deflation occurs, loans increase in value and the burden gets larger every day, not smaller. Those with debt find themselves fighting an ever larger sum. So paying off your debt is a good way to hedge against deflation. It seems like Palantir are preparing for the worst, no matter what the worst might be. From the outside in, it looks as though Palantir aren't sure what will cause the next crash, how it will start or what it will look like, but they appear to be preparing for it nonetheless. And truth be told, this is something that should worry us. Palantir is an information company. They are practically an intelligence agency on their own. They have workers in every major corporation in the United States. They analyze supply chains, cash reserves, leverage, worker productivity, and half 100 other things. If any one company in the world has the information to accurately predict what's going to happen, I'd put my money on it being Palantir. The fear that this news has thrown up and what Palantir have actually come out and said is that the company is preparing for a black swan event, an unpredictable event with far-reaching and severe consequences that we can't do anything to stop. Now don't get me wrong, I'm not about to throw my entire net worth into physical gold that I can bury in my backyard, nor am I about to start stockpiling canned goods. This news alone is not enough to change how I invest, but it is enough to get me thinking, and it should be enough to get you thinking as well. How well prepared am I for a crash? Am I drowning in credit card debt? Are my car payments more than I can handle? Did I buy a bigger house than I needed with a mortgage that I can't afford? These are all questions that we should be concerning ourselves with on a good day, and even more so on a bad one. If you're new to the channel and you enjoyed this video, then make sure to subscribe. If you want to help spread the word, then consider liking the video and leaving a comment, and YouTube will do its part by pushing this video out to more people. There are also links down below in the description where you can get a guaranteed free $25 from crypto.com, up to $250 in free Bitcoin from BlockFi, and up to $2,300 in free stocks from Webull. There's also a link to the brokerage that I use most of the time called eToro that you can check out as well if you want. Thanks for watching. Until next time.